Okay, so now let's look at secondary storage. Right now, secondary storage, also known as auxiliary permanent or backup storage. This is where data and information is stored or saved permanently for future use. So secondary storage is basically where you would save your information permanently. So when you go into any application, you click on save or save as, and then you give it a name, you're saving it to secondary storage. Now, there are basically 4 categories that you can put secondary storage into: magnetic tape, magnetic disk, optical disk, and solid state storage. Right, so let's look at one of them now, the first one, which is magnetic tape. Now, magnetic tape is basically the first type of secondary storage device. It's a storage device that keeps data on magnetized or unmagnetized spots on the tape itself, and it represents information using binary digits, which are ones and zeros. Now, magnetic tape didn't save the information very quickly, right? Because it uses didn't save or retrieve the information very quickly, sorry. And this is because it uses a method called sequential or serial access. And what this is that it's going to save the information in order. That means one after the other. And then when it retrieves it, it has to retrieve it one after the other. So for example, if there are 4 slots left to save information in, it's going to save them in those 4 slots, one after the other. But if it wants to get to the last one, the 4th one, it then has to go to the other 3 to get to that 4th one. As you can imagine, this was very slow and time consuming. So basically, this was one of the reasons why we don't use magnetic tape anymore, right? It's become very obsolete. It's become obsolete, right? Now, another thing with magnetic tape is that it can store a lot of data, a lot, right? And because of this, it's found a second life basically in archiving. And what archiving is, it's basically where you save information and put it away, right, for as long as you want to keep it for, right? This is not a system where you're going to be looking at it every day. So that is where magnetic tape is very useful, right? Even though it's very slow in saving and retrieving information, it can hold a lot of information. So you save it on magnetic tape and put it away until you need it for whenever, right? So what magnetic tape looks like? It looks like a video cassette, a VHS cassette that the image shows on the slide, right? So now let's move on to the next type of secondary storage device, and that would be magnetic disk. Now, magnetic disk was a very popular type of storage device for our computers. This uses direct access, and unlike sequential access, where in sequential access or serial access, it was stored one after the other and retrieved in that manner, direct access doesn't do that. Direct access stored information in anywhere that it can find, or anywhere the CPU directs it to store the information, and then when you have to retrieve it, it goes directly to where it's saved and then brings it back your information, which is way quicker than going through every piece of data that you've saved and then giving it back to you. Right? Now, there are basically 2 types of magnetic disks. They are floppy disk and hard disk. Right? Now, let's start off by looking at the floppy disk. Now, the name floppy disk there, or it can also be called a diskette. Right? Now, this storage is very portable. Just like the magnetic tape, it's something that you can carry around. It's not going to be stationary. Right? And the name floppy there comes from how the disk itself is. It's a floppy disk. It's very floppy. Now with the floppy disk, there are basically 2 types: 5 1/4 and 3 1/2. Right, and each of them are different. They came out in different eras, you want to say. Right. Now first, let us look at the floppy disk. The 5 1/4, sorry, because it was the first one. Now the 5 1/4 disk, it is bigger. Well, basically the name itself, 5 1/4, really denoted the size of it. It was more floppier than the other type, and the maximum for that was about 1 gigabyte, if I'm not mistaken. Maximum at a given point was 1 gigabyte. Sorry, 1 megabyte. My fault, 1 megabyte. Right? Now let's look at the 3 1/2. And as before with the 5 1/4, the 3 1/2 designated the actual size of the device. This device, however, was made of more rigid plastic, so it wasn't as floppy, right? And it was also smaller. And it was, when it first came out, the maximum size it had was 1.4 megabytes. But I think at some point it got to 1 gigabyte before it was stopped being used. Because with these two, the 5 1/4 and 3 1/2, they're not being used anymore. If you look on maybe some older computers, you will see the slot for the 3 1/2. It's rare that you'll see the slot for the 5 1/4.